collection of sharp knives from their kitchen. With deliberate movements, she placed them inside the wooden coffin beside her son's steel form. A gasp rippled through the crowd. The air in the small village of Umoji still carried the faint, lingering scent of harmattan dust, a reminder of the dry season that had just reluctantly given way to the promise of rain. But within the modest compound of Mama Akin, the atmosphere was heavier than any impending downpour. It was thick with the unspoken grief that had become a constant companion since the day the earth had swallowed their patriarch Papa Emeka. Mama Akin, a woman whose laughter once echoed through the village like the joyful calls of weaver birds, now moved with a quiet solemnity. Her eyes, though still holding a spark of fierce love for her children, carried the deep-set weariness of a woman who had stared into the abyss and emerged with a heart forever marked. She was the pillar now, the sole guardian of her two precious children, Aken, her only son, a young man just beginning to feel the weight of manhood on his shoulders, and Chidi, his elder sister, whose beauty was as radiant as the morning sun, but whose smile had become a rarer sight since tragedy struck like an African folklore. Ekene, barely out of his teens, carried a quiet intensity that belied his age. He had his father's strong build and thoughtful eyes that now held a shadow of the injustice that had robbed him of his father's guidance. He remembered vividly the day his world fractured, the shouts, the angry accusations, the horrifying, sickening thought that echoed in his young mind even now, years later. It was his father's own brother, his Uncle Kalu, consumed by a venomous greed for a particular plot of land, a fertile stretch that Papa Emeka had toiled on for years, nurturing its bounty and dreaming of passing it down to his son. That very land, the source of so much bloodshed and sorrow, was now Ekene's inheritance. Papa Emeka, in his wisdom, had foreseen the potential for conflict and had made his wishes clear before his untimely death. But the inheritance, instead of bringing security, had become a poisoned chalice. Uncle Kalu, the man whose hands were stained with his own brother's blood, still coveted that land with a burning obsession. He saw it as rightfully his, a prize snatched away by fate and a just testament. His threats to Ekene were not delivered in hushed whispers, but in open pronouncements, laced with a chilling certainty.
That land,
he had sneered, his eyes glinting with malice,
will be your undoing, boy. It will be the very earth that swallows you whole, just like it did your father.
These words hung in the air like a dark omen, a constant reminder of the danger that lurked just outside their compound walls. Ekene, though outwardly stoic, felt the icy grip of fear tighten around his heart whenever his uncle's shadow fell across his path. He knew the depth of his uncle's wickedness, a wickedness that had already claimed one life and now threatened to extinguish another. The inheritance, meant to be a symbol of his father's legacy, had become a target, and Ekene knew with a chilling certainty that his uncle would stop at nothing to claim it. The peace in their small home was fragile, balanced precariously on the edge of a knife, with the looming threat of Uncle Kalu casting a long, ominous shadow over their lives. What would young Ekene do? How could he protect himself and his family from a man consumed by such bitter greed and a thirst for what was not rightfully his? The answer, like the approaching rainy season, felt both inevitable and terrifyingly uncertain. The shadow of Uncle Kalu's threat, which had loomed so large in the small village of Umoji, eventually fell with devastating finality, not with a swift blow, but with a creeping, insidious darkness. Consumed by his relentless greed for the plot of land and frustrated by Ekene's continued presence, Uncle Kalu descended into the dark arts. He sought out a powerful Dibia who lived in the remote outskirts of the village. A man whispered to command forces beyond the realm of ordinary understanding. This encounter, shrouded in hushed tones and furtive glances, involved the exchange of a hefty psalm and a solemn vow of secrecy. The Dibia, his eyes glinting with an unsettling wisdom, prepared a potent charm, a malevolent concoction designed to bring about a slow, agonizing demise. This marked a dark chapter in this true, heartbreaking African folktale of a son's inheritance turned deadly. Uncle Kalu, his heart pounding with a mixture of fear and wicked anticipation, carefully carried the charm back to Umoji. He knew Ekene's routine well. The young man would often walk to their small farm early in the morning to tend to the crops. Under the cloak of darkness, before the first rays of dawn kissed the horizon, Uncle Kalu crept to the narrow path that Ekene usually took. With trembling hands, he poured the dark, viscous liquid of the charm onto the dusty ground, ensuring it would be the first thing Ekene would step upon that morning. The following days brought a subtle unease to the compound. Ekene didn't collapse on the path, but a strange sickness began to grip him. It started with a persistent nausea and a loss of appetite. Soon, his legs began to swell, becoming heavy and difficult to move. He would often vomit uncontrollably, his once vibrant energy slowly draining away. Mama Ekene and Chidi watched in helpless anguish as Ekene weakened day by day. They consulted local healers, tried traditional remedies, but nothing seemed to alleviate his suffering. The illness was unlike anything they had ever witnessed, a creeping affliction that stole the life force from him bit by bit. This insidious attack was the work of the death by charm, a cruel plot orchestrated by the wicked uncle. For weeks, Ekene endured this agonizing decline. He lay on his mat, his body racked with pain and weakness, his once bright eyes now clouded with suffering. Mama Ekene and Chidi nursed him tirelessly, their hope dwindling with each passing day. Finally, after weeks of relentless sickness, Ekene breathed his last, leaving behind a silence in a home that was more deafening than any scream. The day of his burial was heavy with unspoken sorrow and a palpable sense of injustice. The entire village mourned the slow, painful passing of the promising young man, a victim of his uncle's wicked greed. But amidst the sea of grief, Chidi, Ekene's beautiful elder sister, stood as a testament to their shattered family. Her cries were heart-wrenching, a raw outpouring of love and despair for the brother she had watched wither away. She clung to the edge of the grave, her body trembling almost as if her very soul yearned to follow her beloved brother into the earth. The bond between them had been deep, a comforting presence in the shadow of their father's murder, and now that bond was brutally and agonizingly severed. Mama Ekene, however, stood apart. While tears streamed down her face, a grief was a tightly coiled spring of rage. The initial shock and sorrow slowly morphed into a burning, all-consuming desire for mother's revenge. She had witnessed her son's slow, torturous decline. The helplessness in his eyes and a fierce resolve hardened her heart. This wasn't just about the plot of land anymore, it was about the life that had been stolen, the future that had been snatched away by a husband's wicked uncle. As the gravediggers prepared to finally lay Ekene to rest, Mama Ekene stepped forward, her eyes blazing with a terrifying intensity. She carried with her an old, well-worn axe and a collection of sharp knives from their kitchen. With deliberate movements, she placed them inside the wooden coffin beside her son's steel form. A gasp rippled through the crowd. This was not the usual custom, but Mama Ekene's actions spoke volumes, a powerful message rooted in ancient African tradition. In a voice thick with emotion and unwavering conviction, she spoke to her departed son. Ekene, my son, go with these. They are for you. Avenge your death. Find those who conspired and had a hand in your early departure. Let them know the price of their wickedness. Her words hung heavy in the air, a chilling promise of retribution, fueled by a mother's love and an unyielding thirst for justice. The widow's vengeance had begun, simmering with the pain of watching her son slowly succumb to the dark magic that had been unleashed upon him.